Hi, Tanvir. Tanvir, can you hear us?
Yes, Maaza, I'm sorry. There's a bit of background noise. That's why I'm muting myself.
That's okay. That's okay. Hello, Sophia. Bonjour.
Hi, bonjour. How are you?
Fine. How are you doing?
I'm fine, thanks.
Welcome, welcome. Thank you for joining us. And I see Belinda is here as well. People are slowly joining. Thank you. Sophia, you know, we like to see people's faces, but I know that there is also internet connection issues, etc. So some people keep the camera off for bandwidth. So it's up to you, unless, of course, when you're speaking, it would be nice to see your face. And I know that you'll be giving us a brief introduction. Thank you. Thank you. How are things in Tunis?
Fine. Let's say it's fine. Yeah, we're fighting back with the COVID, but okay.
Okay. All right, so let's give people a couple of minutes to join. Hello, Rachel, welcome. And yeah, if everybody, if you're not speaking, if you could put yourself on mute, that would be great, just to avoid the background noise issues, but we will remind everyone of that once they join. So I'm just going to mute myself and turn the camera off for now, but then we'll give people just until 2:35 South Africa time, just to give people who are coming in late the chance to join.
Good day, everyone.
Hi, Buba. Welcome, welcome. We're just giving people 1 more minute for the people who are running a little bit late to join, and then we'll start. Welcome,
Thank you.
Buba.
Thank you. Hi, Njoki. How are you?
I'm okay, Buba. How are you?
I'm fine, thank you.
Good. Good to see you.
Thank you. Joe.
Hi, everyone.
Hi.
Hi, everyone.
Hi, everyone. Hi, Joab. We just wanted to give people just until 2:35 South Africa time, so we'll be starting momentarily. Hi, everybody. I think we can start, and Viv is here, and she'll be letting people in as they join. For those of you who have I see that we're a small group today. Let's see, how many do we have total here? Let me see. Yeah, we're a small group, actually. From what I can see, Viv, there are actually fewer than 12 of us on today. So I think it would be nice for us to do a quick round of introductions if people don't mind. I think many of us know each other here, but it would be just nice, especially as we have some new people joining. So if you don't mind, and if you have the internet capacity to turn on your video just to show your face to introduce yourself, that would be fantastic. And when you're not speaking, though, please do keep your microphones on mute. So I'll call on the people as I see them on the screen. My name is Maaza Seyoum. I am with the African Alliance and with the People's Vaccine Alliance. Tanvir, I'll call on you, please.
Hi everyone, I'm so sorry, camera is not on. I'm not feeling too well today, but I'm Tanvir Jiwa, the Legal and Communications Officer at the International Commission of Jurists, Africa Regional Program. Happy to meet you all and be here. Thank you.
Thank you. Sophia, I see you next on my screen.
Yeah, hi everyone. My name is Sofian Asta from Jamaiti.
Great, welcome.
Nice to meet you all. Thank you.
Belinda, you're next on my screen. Since we're such a small group, we thought we would do just a quick name and which organization or who you represent.
Okay, my name is Belinda. I'm from Worcester. I'm the chairperson for the Community Advisory Board at SADV and also for FAMCRO. I'm also co-chair for the ACTG CSS.
Great,
committee.
Thank you. Rachel, if you could just introduce yourself quickly.
Sorry, struggling to unmute. Hi, I'm Rachel Nicholson. I'm a researcher with Amnesty based in the East Africa Regional Office.
Thank you. Vasi?
Hi, I'm Vasi Naidu. I'm actually an academic, but with the People's Vaccine Campaign of Active Citizens Movement in South Africa. And yes, and thank you so much for your webinars. And of course, I'm trying to join your alliance as well. Thank you.
Fantastic. Lynette?
Afternoon, my name is Lynette Mudekunye. I am the regional head of programs with REPSI, based in Joburg, but our programs cover 13 countries.
Thank you. And Lynette, we met virtually yesterday, so it's nice to see you again. Njoki?
Good afternoon. I'm Joki Jeho, based in Nairobi. I'm with the Fighting Equality Alliance.
Thank you. For those of you who've just joined the webinar, since we're such a small group today, we thought we would do a very quick round of introductions. For those of you who have the internet bandwidth and can put on your cameras to do the intro, we would appreciate that just so we can see your voices. I'm just going around the way I see the names here on my screen. Buba? Oh, you're on mute, Buba.
Sorry. Good morning, or it's afternoon. How are you all? Buba, Africa Advocacy Advisor based in the Gambia, working for Action AID International.
Thank you. Joab?
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Joab Okanda. I'm with Oxfam based in Nairobi. Thank you.
Thanks, Joab. Welcome. Rehad?
Riyad Desai from the People's Vaccine Campaign, South Africa.
Welcome, Rehad. Nice to see you. Ntando?
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Ntando Yola. I am with the Vaccine Advocacy Resource Group based in Cape Town, South Africa.
Welcome, Ntando. Susan?
Hi, everyone. I'm Susan Tolmay, and I am the Gender and Governance Associates at GenderLinks. Great to be here. Thanks for the information. It's really helpful.
Welcome, Susan. Sally Jean?
Hi, everyone. I'm Sally. I'm based in Cape Town, South Africa, and I'm from Frontline AIDS. It's good to see some partners here today as well. Hi, everyone.
Welcome. Samson?
Hi, everyone. My name is Samson Orao. I'm the Programs and Strategy Lead at Action AID Kenya. Nice to be in this meeting, and thank you very much.
Welcome, Samson. Victor?
Hi, colleagues and friends. My name is Victor Lodge. I'm Media and Comms Lead for Oxfam Pan-Africa Program. Thank you.
Thank you so much. And I see that Violet has also just joined us. While her microphone comes on, Vivian. Oh, you didn't get a chance to introduce yourself, Vivian.
Hi, I'm Vivian. I'm with the African Alliance, and I do the coordination for the COVID-19 portfolio. Thank you. Nice to meet all of you.
Violet, welcome. Since we're such a small group today, under 20 people, we thought we would do just a quick round of introductions, please. So just your name and who you represent.
Okay, should I go next?
Yes, you're the last one who just joined. Go ahead.
Okay. Hi, guys. My name is Violet, and I'm from Kenya. I work for the Kenya Medical Practitioners, Pharmacists and Dentists Union, and this is a union that represents doctors in Kenya. These are pharmacists, dentists, medical officers, all with the aim of improving healthcare in the country. And so we believe for healthcare to even get better, we have to start by advocating for doctors' rights. So yes, that's why I'm here.
Thank you, Violet. That was helpful just for us all to get to at least know each other a little bit. Vivian, as people join, maybe just have them introduce themselves in the chat, please, if more people join us. So we're scheduled for a 90-minute meeting, and I know that we have a lot to discuss today because people have been quite busy in the last month, and there are also many things upcoming. So we'll try and go through things relatively quickly. I do have a few short slides just to update the new people on the People's Vaccine Alliance. We're also very pleased. We've had some of you who have formally joined the People's Vaccine Alliance in the last month or so. I have a list here that People's Vaccine Campaign. So Rehad, I've seen those emails that you have formally joined the People's Vaccine Alliance. We also have Violet, the Kenya Medical Practitioners, Pharmacists and Dentists Union. Africans Rising has joined, but I see that Mohammed is not here today. And Ianaso has also joined, and I see that Onesimus has just joined us. Onesimus, welcome. I know that those of us who were on the meeting last month heard a little bit about Ianaso, but if you could just introduce yourself for those who don't know you, please, just very briefly.
Thank you so much. My name is Onesimus Mlewa Kalama, and I'm the Executive Director of Ianaso. And Ianaso is a regional network organization and host to the Global Fund Anglophone Communication Coordination Platform that actually supports 23 African English-speaking countries. And yes, I'm again happy to be part of this conversation. We do quite a lot of work in health policy advocacy, community preparedness, in health interventions, as well as ensuring that we disseminate relevant information to communities timely and in a way that is understandable to communities. Thank you so much.
Okay, thank you. So I will quickly, I'm going to stop my video and just quickly go through the slides here, just to update you on the information that we have received from People's Vaccine Alliance Global. As you know, the African Alliance has a broader portfolio of work, both on HIV prevention research, sexual and reproductive health, gender issues, began working on COVID-19 about a year and a half ago, and is now the Africa coordination hub for the People's Vaccine Alliance on the continent. Can everybody see my slides?
Yes.
Okay, great. Thank you. So just wanted to run through just today's agenda as a reminder. And obviously we do have, we will any other business at the end. So please feel free to add and use the comment box as well. But we'll be giving you an update from the People's Vaccine Alliance. We would love to hear activities that you all have worked on in the last month and points that we as a collective can amplify, build on, or learn from. We would like to talk a little bit about strategizing on next steps following the Group of Seven Summit, which took place a couple of weeks ago. And just in terms of strategizing, how can African civil society organizations collaborate and be more involved? As you know, we would like to give different partners opportunities every month to give quick updates on the work that they're doing. This month, our friend Sofiane Asta from Tunisia has agreed to give us an introduction on Jamaiti, which is African Alliance's North African partner. So we really appreciate Sofiane jumping in at the very last minute. We were supposed to have Levi Singh from SAT give an update today, but he has been called into another emergency meeting. So Sofiane is jumping in. So we really appreciate you, Sofiane, for that. And then we would like to talk about upcoming events. I know that Buba Khan from Action AID in Gambia is planning an event. Violet, I think I saw on Twitter that the Kenya Medical Practitioners, Pharmacist and Dentist Union has a really interesting event taking place. I believe it's tomorrow. So any events that you have that are upcoming, if you could let the group know and send us the link so we can register if it's open, that would be very helpful. I'm hoping that Tian Johnson will be able to join us. They are in another meeting at the moment, but if they do, we will get an update on the Africa Charter on COVID-19, which the steering group of this group has been working on and drafting, and then we will go to any other business. So again, just a reminder for those of you who are new to this group, the People's Vaccine Alliance is not an organization. It's a coalition of over 55 organizations and networks with support from, influential people, heads of state, Nobel laureates, etc. We are united under a common aim of campaigning for people's vaccine. And the idea of this is having a free vaccine available everywhere for everyone, a global common good. We do have a set of demands which are critical. These are on the website. These are the demands that everybody agrees to when joining the People's Vaccine Alliance. And again, this group, our monthly meeting and our Africa Civil Society Organization group is informal. It's open to all. We have these monthly meetings. Anybody can join. We do have the WhatsApp group, and we're trying to kind of drum up more regular communication around that. We will be developing terms of reference for our steering group. But for those of you and your organizations who would like to join the People's Vaccine Alliance more formally, there's actually nothing to sign. I remember Tanvir, you as a lawyer had talked about that. What is the requirement in terms of signing a document? There's nothing to sign, but the People's Vaccine Alliance will run these 5 demands by you and ask you to agree via email that your organization can support these 5 demands. So raising the ambition to vaccinate 60% of the planet, breaking the shackles of intellectual property on vaccines and COVID-19 knowledge, making an immediate and large investment of public money into manufacturing more vaccine doses around the world, providing COVID-19 vaccines, treatments, and tests free of charge to everyone, everywhere, and scaling up global financial support for upgrading and expanding public health systems. So those are the demands of the People's Vaccine Alliance that all the advocacy goes towards. And as I said, I'm very pleased. The Africa group has actually been the most dynamic in terms of adding members in the last month. So thank you for all of those of you who expressed enthusiasm to join the People's Vaccine Alliance in the last month. Just to give you a sense of how the People's Vaccine Alliance works, there is a steering group, and then there are all these subgroups: campaigns and media, policy advocacy, influentials group. So this is a group that targets influential leaders, basically, that can have an impact at African, global, other levels. And then there's what we call the Southern Influencing Group, where there are representatives from Asia, Africa, Latin America, and the Caribbean. So that's how the People's Vaccine Alliance tries to do its work, by targeting these. The main 3 areas are really campaigns and media, policy advocacy, and targeting influentials. There are some temporary groups that have been set up. For example, there was a group that focused on the G7 meeting. There is a group that's focused on the upcoming G20 meeting. There is a temporary German group, because as we will discuss, Germany is one of the countries that really needs to be targeted and shamed in terms of their refusal to support the waiving of IP rights and tech transfer. There's a group that's focused on the EU. There's a pharmaceutical advisory group. So there are some temporary groups, but the 3 main pillars are campaigns and media, policy and advocacy, and targeting influentials. And then now a push to really get more input and feedback from representatives from the Global South. In terms of, some of what has been produced by the People's Vaccine Alliance, there have been protests. What you see on the bottom left is a giant banner that was rolled out. I believe that's London, for a day of action. What you see here with the lights flashing on the ground here, Drop the Patents and Vaccine Apartheid, was a pharmaceutical company in a European country where there was that takeover and that light was flashed. Protests, media stunts, etc. So there has been a lot of that in the last few months. There is a global petition, which has grown to almost 3 million people who have signed it. And Susan, I apologize, some of these slides are a repeat for you, Lynette, as well, because these are some of the slides that I presented yesterday at your really interesting feminist perspectives on COVID-19 vaccine equity meeting. But there is a petition that has been signed by over 2.5 million people and still going. There is an effort to get media coverage. So here you'll see there was support from the Pope, support from Meghan Markle and her husband. So all of that sort of trying to get a lot of high-level press coverage. That's what the media and communications team focuses on. There is an interest now to get more coverage in African and other newspapers as well. There have been a lot of op-eds, letters written to high-level leaders. Here, please let me know if the link actually transfers through. But there was an op-ed. Can people see this link?
Yes.
Thank you, Viv.
Yes.
So this was an op-ed written with support of the People's Vaccine Alliance by the Arch of Cape Town, titled "Not Sharing Knowledge in a Pandemic is Immoral and a Stain on Humanity." And there was this letter that many of you signed, which we really appreciate. We had spoken about this at the May meeting. This was as a build-up to the G7 meeting, a letter targeting selected European leaders. So these are leaders of European countries that were colonial powers in Africa, that were blocking the TRIPS waiver. And this is a letter that, we reminded them of their colonial tendencies, the fact that some of their colonial tendencies were still showing, as President Macron of France keeps saying, he's a friend of Africa. He was in South Africa and Rwanda recently, and this was advice to them that as friends of Africa, we're suggesting that you get onto the right side of history and support the TRIPS waiver. Since then, I'd like to say that it's because of our letter, but it's with a lot of other advocacy. The French president has changed his mind. He was going back and forth, but he has changed his mind and is now supporting the TRIPS waiver. So these slides will be shared, but this sort of gives you a sense of the different kinds of high-level advocacy that the People's Vaccine Alliance is focused on. There is a statistics group as well out of the office that Joab sits in, and they produce, these key facts. There was one that was going around during the G7, noting that the small town or the county of Cornwall, where the G7 was being held, had received more vaccinations than 22 African countries combined. Here you have Greta Thunberg, the environmental activist, so using and changing a picture of her to say basically that she would be quite old by the time, what does it say here? I can't see it. She will be 75 by the time all the low and middle income country citizens are vaccinated. So that gives you a sense of the data that's used and kind of trying to do fun, different things to get people's attention with data. There are some products that were developed. Here's one that we developed for the G7 with Macron and the other European leaders, basically as the horsemen of the apocalypse and putting the deaths on them. There are also a few, and I'm not sure if we have time at the end, I can share these, but there was an animation that was done that's about a minute long with a US actor voicing that about the need. And this was actually right after Joe Biden agreed to support the TRIPS waiver in that region. This video animation was produced, and there's also a spoof of an actor playing a pharmaceutical rep. There is a lot of work around trying to shame pharmaceutical companies. 9 pharma CEOs have become billionaires in the last year, partially thanks to the amount of money that they've made out of COVID-19 vaccines. These are vaccines for which the production was paid for by taxpayer money, or mostly by taxpayer money. So, there is quite a bit of shaming of pharmaceutical company CEOs that we are trying to work on. And these are just some other stunts as well. Here is these, so I think this was done by Oxfam and Action AID, you know, people with the big heads representing the G7 leaders. Here you have Macron and Biden and the others. And so this is just kind of media stunts. And there is really an effort to try and do more of these in the global South. Whatever works, I realize that some of the stunts that work in the global North would not work in the global South. So this is really where we want your feedback on what would work better. And for those of you who'd formally joined the People's Vaccine Alliance and are really interested in issues of media and communications, there is an opening to join the Media and Communications subcommittee as well. So in terms of where we are now, this map has changed a little bit since the last time we met. You'll see that France has shifted over, but still there are countries that are undecided. Canada is undecided. Japan is still wavering, but you have the countries that are sponsors and co-sponsors as the yellow stars. You have supporters, and then you have the opponents. So most of the European Union are still opponents to the TRIPS waiver. In terms of where we stand, this map, which was developed by Joab's colleagues at Oxfam, shows you in terms of, you know, green, the really green ones are, you know, closer to 100% of doses secured. And then as you get redder and redder, a problem with doses being secured of vaccines. I don't know if you can see these, it's quite small. But for every dose given in a low-income country, 121 are given in a high-income country. Here you see in terms of percentage of people vaccinated, Africa is the lowest, Europe and North America the highest. So this is all data that's compiled by the teams at Oxfam. Here is, you know, kind of the ridiculousness of the amount of press that Joe Biden received for his announcement about the number of donations that the US would give. Donations promised by the US is this giant part of the pie, and then donations actually delivered by the US is this tiny sliver here. So this kind of shows you what has been promised and what has been delivered. In terms of strategic opportunities now going forward, there is a general consensus that the G7, except for Macron's change of mind, was an epic failure. There was a lot of talk about donations of vaccines, as I mentioned, but even if the countries that promised vaccines were to give everything that they promised, that still would only cover 2 or 3 African countries. So there is a push really to look forward to the G20 in October. There is obviously more developing country representation there, pushing the US to play more of a diplomatic role on tech transfer, growing the voice of the global South. We really are basically, you know, reaching a human rights crisis at this point with the third wave hitting many African and other global South countries, while you have, you know, people in the US and Europe planning their holidays, going to the Euros with their masks off, as Strive Masiwa said, while, you know, people, even healthcare workers in African countries are not receiving vaccines, pushing Germany. Germany in particular is apparently the most vocal blocker of the TRIPS waiver. So pushing Germany and the rest of the blockers to pursue tech transfer and back the waiver, and then continuing to shame pharmaceutical corporations. Upcoming key dates, and here obviously we would like the Africa team to add, you know, there are informal meetings of the World Trade Organization coming up in a few days. On July 15th, Merkel visits the US. So the partners in the US will want to do some advocacy around that, maybe protests, etc. July 19th is what the UK is calling Freedom Day. That's the day that all of their COVID-19 restrictions are lifted. So we have had a request from one of our collaborators in the UK to adapt that civil society letter and put it in UK newspapers on that day. So to basically say, as you all are celebrating your freedom, we are still struggling with this third wave of the pandemic. There is a formal meeting of the, it's actually the WTO, sorry, not WHO, World Trade Organization TRIPS General Council coming up on July 20th. The Olympics are starting at the end of July, and there's been some talk, even though not confirmed, of trying to do some action around the Olympics because there is so much viewership and there are people going from all over. August, not sure when, and if one of you here in this team knows, please let us know, but there is talk that the CureVac vaccine will be approved in August. And then as we discussed, the G20 meeting is coming up. The first part of that is the health ministers meeting on September 5th. And that's it for now. I just wanted to go through and give you all a quick run through. I'll put my camera back on. but that's just sort of the update of where things stand with the People's Vaccine Alliance Global. We would really now like to, one, please, if you have any questions, feel free to ask comments and updates from you all now in terms of the activities that you have held in the last month. And we are recording, and we will share the recording with the group, but we would like to know, what activities you have put together in the last month, anything that can be amplified, any next steps that you need inputs or support with. So first, happy to take questions, and then any activities that you have implemented recently that you'd like to share with the group. I can see, oh, yes, I was going to say, I can see Rehad's face and looking very pensive. Yes, there you are, Rehad, please jump in.
Yeah, feeling very pensive at the moment. Johannesburg's going through Johannesburg in particular, the province as a whole, very massive figures. It's going to hugely overtake this first and second waves in terms of the levels of infections and so on, and lots of death. And I think there is a temptation to, obviously you've got to be checking what government are doing, what they aren't doing and stuff. So between the local and the international, we've got very limited capacity, which is reinforced by the level of anxiety and stress and death that's happening all around us. Now, I just think we almost need to zoom out a bit. And something that's really struck me is, while people say I'm going to have no easy exit from this pandemic, the fact that this virus pathogen is much more unstable than everybody thought it would be, and the mutations are therefore coming thick and fast, particularly in sub-Saharan Africa and other regions of the world which are struck by high levels of HIV positivity, many of whom we know are not on treatment. So it's going to be with us for some time. The one question I have for you, Maaza, is that there's a very much focus on the political establishments. Yes, as one set of people we need to keep accountable. But this is a systemic problem. I mean, I'm just reading the charter while you were opening the meeting. It's there, but in simple terms, this is a system, much like the climate crisis, which means this is not some human disaster. This is in many ways man-made. If we look at the levels of viruses, the rise of zoonotic viruses and its connection to colonialism and extractivism and the system. It's a system that's created it, and it's a system that's unwilling to get us out of it. And we're looking at the prospect, with the context of mutations, of the world being balkanized, where bubbles of vaccinated people live, and bubbles of people who are not vaccinated, certainly against the emerging strains and variants that are coming out. So I suppose the big question coming from the PVC is, how do we begin to talk and operate in such a way where we can connect to, mass-based organizations, people's organizations, trade unions, and so on? How do we keep it simple? How do we keep it political? And at the same time, I think, the key thing, I think, given the urgency and the balance of power in the world, and the fact that these pharmaceutical companies are based in the global north, what are we asking our partners in those countries where these companies are based to do? what are the processes, the steps in movement building, in other words. And I'm afraid just looking at the actions, it seems very much around media and stunts and stuff, and maybe that's all we've got at the moment, but we need to go further. And
yes,
that's the mission and vision I think I was asking for earlier is very critical. What are we, this is, if we are to build something, it's for the long haul. We know from our experience in South Africa, building the HIV lobby internationally was a 2-3 year process. We don't really have 2-3 years, but we're probably looking at that. So this is some opening comments.
Okay, thank you, Rehed. I really appreciate it. And I just want to highlight, you raise a very good point. This People's Vaccine Alliance was started by groups in London and Geneva, so initially started with an op-ed and then moved to the movement. And initially the target was really targeting leaders in the global north, but there is a push now, as I've said, to really now shift, recognizing the fact that the global south is most impacted now and really changing the language, so even highlighting some of this human rights, long-term health crisis that we are seeing. So this is really, I think, where all of us come in. I do, I have said before that I do feel that the People's Vaccine Alliance is really open to get the voices and inputs from the global south. So it's up to us, whether it's sharing stories, really giving them the actual accurate picture of what's going on. You talk about Gauteng. I know that we have, friends, comrades who have lost family members to the pandemic just in the last few weeks, even on this call. So really it's up to us to switch up, and kind of push the People's Vaccine Alliance to change the way they do things. As I've said, these media stunts, some of them seem like they work in the UK. They've asked us to try and do some of those in South Africa or in Kenya, and it just hasn't worked. We were asking some colleagues in Senegal a few months ago, and they were like, do you realize that we are being killed in the streets protesting for democracy, and you want us to go out there and, do something goofy? So, it's really up to us to sort of change the way things are done. So thank you for that reminder, the somber reminder. Joab, I see your hand is up.
Yes, thanks, Maaza. And thanks for that. I think in terms of shifting that narrative and bringing in the global South voices, I think it will be useful for us to also start sharing what's happening in our own countries. In this meetings, just updating each other on what's happening. I know in many countries on the continent, then the cases are now rising. So what does that mean as we continue campaigning? I also think that we really need to look through the donations, what's being promised versus what's being delivered. The donations language was very strong in the G7 communique. And what does that mean, for example, in the text negotiations at the WTO? Is it going to water down the final text of a TRIPS waiver one when we get one? The other thing that worries me when it comes to donations is that, and I think we really need to think through as a group how to approach it. Most of the vaccines that are being donated to African countries are those that are a month away to expiry. So it also brings in the issue of administering the vaccine. Are we going to see only the urban populations being vaccinated because now governments have to vaccinate as quickly as possible, and what kind of inequalities that is going to create between accessing vaccines, the divide between the urban and rural areas, So, I mean, I feel we really need to look at the issue of donations further, other than just saying, this is what has been promised, this is what has been delivered. For example, I'll take an example of for example, Denmark donated recently to Kenya. They just delivered, I think, the course of this week, and it's expiring in a month's time. So what happens if the government is not able to administer all the vaccines? So, you know, we're likely to see a situation where same countries start saying, yeah, we've given this number of doses and they're just wasting them. They're not able to administer, and they're now, yeah, they're expired, you know. So yeah, that's my little input into this discussion.
Thank you, Joab. And I do think that, you know, your colleagues have been very good at compiling the information. That slide that I shared about slides promised and slides given is just the one of the multitudes of things that your colleagues have gathered there. So we'll keep trying to get more of a breakdown of the numbers so we can see. And I think, you know, part of what Rehat also points out is that we also need to put pressure on our governments as well. You know, much of the issue is coming from the end of the global north and, you know, the systems that have been set up to keep people deprived, but there is also some push that we can do with our governments as well. And I know that some of you here on this group have been working on that. I see that Susan had her hand up, and then Samson.
Thanks, Maaza. Just a little quick update. We had on an event that we had that we were very happy to have you at, thank you, which was really looking at vaccine justice from a women's rights feminist perspective, because as with everything, COVID-19 certainly has affected women and men differently, and the vaccine rollout is very much unlikely to be different. So we brought together partners from the region, from our project in South Africa, community-based organizations who are rolling out programs around vaccine awareness. And yeah, it was a really, my feeling was that people learned a lot. I don't think that, you know, there has been a deeper understanding of what vaccine injustice really is and how it works. So I think getting the message out is really important. I think it was very eye-opening. So yeah, I think it's important that we keep the conversation going, and, you know, in our small spaces. And yeah, I'm really delighted that I think the majority of people on the call today are women. So there's definitely not a shortness of women's perspective. So that's great. Then I just had a question, and it might be a bit ignorant. But do all countries have to agree to the TRIPS waiver in order for it to happen, or does it depend on the World Trade Organization negotiations? And how many countries have to kind of agree to it?
So it depends on the World Trade Organization negotiation. So I think that upcoming meeting that I mentioned is actually quite critical. We have the informal meeting coming up on June 30th, and then there's the General Council that meets on October 13th. I think what helps is, you know, when you have a country like the US and a country like Germany that supports the TRIPS waiver, it's more likely that the General Council will move to decide in that way. You know, they have agreed to, and Joab, you mentioned this, thank you, text-based negotiations or a text review of the TRIPS waiver they have agreed to. And what Joab, I think, is implying is that there's been quite a bit of discussion about what does that mean? You know, can they drag this out now and say we're reviewing text and then it's going to take us another 6 months to do it? Are they going to water down the TRIPS waiver in that process? But my understanding is that the General Council takes a vote in October, and they could agree to discuss it during that meeting, or they could table it to a further meeting. But I know that Tanvir is here from ICJ and has been thinking a lot about these issues. Tian is here. Others who are better versed on issues of the World Trade Organization, please feel free to chime in before we move on to Samson. Anybody have anything to add?
Thank you.
My understanding very quickly is that, you know, it's always been based on consensus, and that, but that does not rule out the possibility of a vote. Now, the question is, should we be pushing for a majority vote? We clearly have the majority. It's supposed to, you know, in text, in words anyway, represent the interests of the whole world. We know that the WTO was set up to protect the IP rights, which reside mainly in the global north. So this is the problem we face, and this is I think we should be pushing our governments to take a much harder line on the matter. But I think what is missing from our side is why the flexibility waiver does not work. What is the experience? Why are countries not using it? I mean, essentially, I'm informed it's highly bureaucratic, and the power of big pharma and the fear of sanctions and so on is very real. So no one's ever used it to my mind, maybe Colombia or a couple of other countries. But there is another view that maybe we should be, you know, our sole focus shouldn't be on this waiver. Yes, it's a compromise, and we need it. We need it to happen, but there are other mechanisms of just ignoring the treaty because text-based negotiations are going to take a long, long time, and we don't have that time. So I think we've got to raise the spectre, I think, of compulsory licensing and you know, doing what we're pirating, whatever, doing what we need to protect our lives in the global south.
And Rehad, you raise a good point. You know, there is also the CTAP, which encourages pharmaceutical companies to voluntarily hand over without going through the TRIPS waiver, and that's part of trying to shame the pharmaceutical companies. But obviously, that has not worked. You know, there is the goal. One of the goals of the People's Vaccine Alliance is to have at least one pharmaceutical company willingly hand over IP rights via CTAP. You know, in terms of the technology transfer. You know, and I think they said during the third quarter of 2021, if I'm not mistaken. And I just wanted to add one thing that, you know, President Ramaphosa has been very clear in his demands. You know, the South Africa was the sponsor of the, you know, this waiver along with India. So maybe, you know, and if we have time, I'd also be curious to hear, you know, what other, you know, we have some Kenyans on the group. We have people from other African countries. What, you know, if you think that your leaders need to be pushed to be more vocal in their support for technology transfer or the TRIPS waiver. I think you're absolutely right, Rehad, that a lot of, you know, the pharmaceutical companies are really putting pressure. Yesterday at the meeting that Susan mentioned, Gender Links, somebody asked, you know, why would it be that a country like Germany does not support the TRIPS waiver? And it's, you know, essentially it's, my response was, you know, it's basically greed. You know, what we've heard is that the pharmaceutical companies based in Europe have been pressuring Angela Merkel to not support the waiver. I'm seeing comments coming in here, transfer of technology for the mRNA vaccine, that would allow South Africa to manufacture vaccines. So I will give one more opportunity for, if anybody else wants to add anything about the TRIPS waiver, and then we'll go to Samson. Anybody else have any additional comments about technology transfer or TRIPS waiver before we give Samson a chance to speak?
Sorry, just we've been asked on the M&R technology transfer, and they're saying 9 to 12 months. I think it's completely unrealistic. It looks like more like 18 months to 2 years at the best, and that's if the investment is forthcoming from the government. That's the problem. The technology will help us with all sorts of vaccines for TB and malaria and all sorts of things coming down the pipeline. But we need the source. We need the secret of the source, and that's the key thing. So it's, you know, the AU committed to building manufacturing capacity in 2016. It has done nothing. COVAX, I don't know why we're flogging a dead horse still, and I think we need to revisit this. The African Charter, it was set up to fail, and it has failed. So why are we still, you know, saying COVAX? Surely there must be a better way.
And and we've definitely moved, I think, away. You know, the People's Vaccine Alliance has moved away from the COVAX discussions, you know, a while ago, because COVAX is clearly not delivering. I know that we're quickly running out of our time for the open discussion. Samson, let me just move to you. You've had your hand up for so long. I'm sorry.
Well, thank you very much, Maaza, and not to mind the hand that was raised. So I'd just like to give you something. I'm fairly new to this discussion. I think this is my first meeting, but I'm just looking at two things. Yesterday, I saw on the news that Cuba has been able to manufacture its own vaccines and that those vaccines have been very, very effective. The aspect of technological transfer is very important, and we need to look at how African countries are also able to, engage in this kind of discussion, and the aspect also of patenting, and the sharing of patents, and what that means cross-border, and what that means for reducing the effects. Because, like my colleague from Oxfam had mentioned, some of the vaccines that we are getting here are vaccines which are expired, and so that becomes a problem in inoculating the population. Something else I wanted to find out was also about our responsibility with regards to our governments. How do we keep our governments accountable? How do we make sure that we have a conversation on, vaccination for all? That is not just a segment of the population who are able to get vaccines. And how do we also make sure that there's compliance with the policies that are in place, so that now we ensure that there's an affordable, or rather a free mechanism through which even the most vulnerable are able to get access to the vaccines, and that there's also a level of putting standards into place to make sure that there's safety. Because from what we have witnessed in Kenya, over a while, there was a period when AstraZeneca vaccine ran out. Word on the street has been, now you're getting water, or that could you, if you got AstraZeneca as a first dose, could you go for Pfizer? So even those supply chains mechanisms, how do our own governments make sure that there's a national and global conversation around protection of citizens? Perhaps that could have been discussed in previous sessions, but it's something which is troubling my mind. Thanks.
Thank you, Samson. Unfortunately, I see that People's Vaccine Alliance Kenya is not here today, but I know that they had done some work on that in Kenya, trying to keep the government accountable. I don't know if either Violet or Joab have anything to add about that work before we go to Njoki, especially you, Joab. I know that I've just seen your note that you have to jump off in a few minutes. Can you say anything about the pressure that was being put on the Kenyan government about the logistics and supply chain management in Kenya?
Sorry, Maaza, I've been off a bit, so I'm not very well conversant with what's happening currently in Kenya.
Don't worry, I completely understand. Violet, do you have anything to add about this issue? I know that you were doing some work as well on this, or anybody else in Kenya before. And I know, Njoki, obviously you are in Kenya as well. So why don't we go to you first before we put Violet on the spot? So go ahead and make your comment. And is there anything that you can add to Samson's question?
Thank you. Actually, I do not, in terms of the questions that Samson has asked, but I do have two comments. One of which is that yesterday I was on a call on a panel organized by the Commonwealth Foundation, and had people from all over the quote unquote Commonwealth. Problematic, blah, blah, blah. I wouldn't go into that, but one of the things that where we were challenging and raising the question saying, when you talk about the Commonwealth on the people's vaccine issues, you have India as part of the Commonwealth, but you also have the UK. And on the people's vaccine, they're on very, very opposite sides. You also have Canada also, of course, in that group of the Commonwealth. And so the response, because it was public, I would say, by the Deputy Secretary General of ITUC, I took, was that the people in those countries where there is opposition by government on the TRIPS waiver are not supporting their governments, that they support the TRIPS waiver. And I think that this raises a question for us in terms of what we as the African Alliance can call upon our allies in Canada, in Germany, in the UK, in terms of solidarity to push their government The second thing that I do want to say that I think is also, even with besides the ability to deliver and to get the vaccines that are being donated, and with the problem of them being on the verge of expiring, I think the one other issue, and I believe this had come up before, is the question of vaccine hesitancy across the African continent, and what we as an alliance might do in terms of the conversation and the narrative that is going on around this, because it's not just the villagers. You hear quite intelligent, well-educated people, you know, they're part of what is spreading or growing the hesitancy. So we actually do have, they're about to expire. We don't even have a good system for delivering to everybody. So access issues, but also that there's hesitancy. So it may even get to a rural area in Kenya or in South Africa or in Ghana, but people don't want the vaccine. So that's another challenge that I think we face. I will leave it at that.
Great, thank you. Thank you so much for that, Njeri. And I just wanted to say, and you know, I will put Tian on the spot later on to speak about the African Union's work generally, but I know that there's real interest in tracking, and I see Tian's hand is up. So Tian, why don't I go to you, and then Onesimus will come to you. I wanted to talk, and somebody is doing their dishes. If you could put yourself on mute, please, when you're not talking, that would be great. So Tian, will you address the hesitancy issue as well, please, the research that is being planned? Thanks, Tian.
Thanks, Maaza. Hi, everyone. Just a quick update, and I guess some context in terms of this update is that beginning July, we'll be generating an Africa report. So you'll be able to have a look there and see the continental status in terms of how rollout is going. Of course, a lot is happening across the continent. We still have some countries that are really challenging when it comes to providing data, frequent data. And of course, the biggest culprits there, so if there's anyone on this call from any of those countries, that'll be great, is Algeria, Botswana, Djibouti, Guinea-Bissau, Sierra Leone, and unsurprisingly, South Africa. And these are countries that are consistently failing to provide the vaccine data into these regional platforms. But of course, in the next 3 months, we have nearly 1.5 million doses that are expiring in 15 Africa countries. And that's a huge challenge because it doesn't only speak to hesitancy, but it also speaks to what is happening at community level to either generate the awareness in the first instance, deal with vaccine hesitancy, and then finally get people vaccinated. So we have accounts from across Nigeria where you can pay $700 to have a vaccine come to your door. And of course, so we have these side channels, and of course, you can't really control how that kind of rollout happens. In terms of mixing and matching, of course, there is no clear data currently. And of course, if anyone on the call has that data in terms of mixing vaccine candidates, we have seen some countries look at that, but of course it's almost a luxury, isn't it? Thinking about mixing vaccine candidates when we don't even have the prime candidate. We do know that a few of the companies have already started looking at developing a booster. The current narrative really is that it's likely that this will be like a flu vaccine, so it will be a regular vaccine that people will have to take. And then just one last comment, it's not, perhaps not all totally doom and gloom. We do have some success stories of countries that have started turning the tide. Angola, Cote d'Ivoire, Madagascar, and Rwanda have really been efficient in terms of how they've rolled out, in terms of how they've engaged communities and the role of civil society within those countries. So we've already started compiling early lessons learned around sector coordination, around planning, around innovation, high-level support, political engagement. What does the cold chain situation look like in countries that are relying on cold chains? And of course, as part of our work looking at the community engagement and risk communication work of the African Vaccine Delivery Alliance, a key part of that is how do we get ahead of the curve in terms of issues that are taking place. So whether that's whether that's around communications or around, Johnson & Johnson and the blood clots. We're seeing some heart issues now out of the mRNA vaccines, heart inflammation issues amongst young people. And so what does all of that mean? So it's quite a lot to deal with. We frequently feel like we're swimming against a tsunami, but we will be releasing a monthly report starting in July that will hopefully give you a flavor of what's happening across the regions. And to that end, of course, we've partnered with four regional networks that really ensure that we keep on top of what is happening around community engagement, civil society, and holding those in power to account. Thanks, Maaza.
Thanks, Tian. And Sophia, speaking of that, we will be coming to you in a couple of minutes, but I just want to give Onesmus a chance to make his intervention before we go to our friend in Tunis.
Thank you very much, Maaza. I think for us, as ENASO hosting the regional platform for communication and coordination, we've been doing quite a lot of work towards ensuring that communities are well prepared into accepting vaccines. I think the challenge now we are seeing is really not so much more on resistance from communities. Yes, resistance is still there, and there is still quite a lot of work that we need to do to ensure that communities fully accept and actually are ready to access. But I think the more critical challenge we are facing right now is vaccine availability, because actually the vaccines are actually not coming as fast as people thought. And I know most of the countries were supposed actually to be getting their doses from India. And then what happened in India, and India decided we need to deal with the domestic issue first. Then that led to quite a lot of strain in some of the countries, especially in Africa, that were actually expecting their vaccines. So this is something that still communities need to understand, because even the delay in vaccine delivery itself starts creating another ideology that probably these vaccines were not good, that's why they are stopping them, because people really do not understand why the vaccines are actually not coming. So ENASO, in collaboration with other partners in the region, like Treatment Access Movement, have actually been rolling out continuous webinars to educate communities, and we are really organizing another webinar to just talk much more about issues that are actually emanating. People used to know that when you get your first AstraZeneca vaccine dose, then after some 2 or whatever weeks, you're supposed to get the second dose, but then the second dose was not coming. What are the implications? There's still quite a lot of information gap that people do not understand. When I get my second dose, does it mean that I'm fully covered, or do I need to take extra 2 doses within the time frame that was actually required? So we'll be organizing, continuing with this kind of series of webinars to share more accurate information, bring in the technical experts so that they can keep on informing communities that this is exactly the position of the vaccines. If you had received your first dose and you are actually spending this much time, you either shouldn't worry, or this is what you're supposed to do. So we'll keep actually also updating this platform on the events that will actually be planning and conducting ahead to increase more awareness at the communities, so that should we even have more resources from this platform, then we can actually be able to use those further to ensure that communities are well prepared. Thank you very much, Maaza.
Okay, thank you, Onesmus. And you remind me of a good point. You know, there is so much going on around the continent in terms of people doing community education and advocacy, and, you know, a lot of other efforts on issues of vaccine equity. And sometimes, you know, it's easy for us to forget that there are things that are happening that we are not aware of. So we will try and do a better job of communicating, at least the people that are in this platform, sharing the information. But please do also, those of you who have activities coming up, let us know. You know, sometimes we catch them on social media. So for example, the one, Violet, your session, we saw advertised on social media for tomorrow, but sometimes we do miss them. But there is so much going on, and people are really working hard and swimming against this tsunami, as Tian has said, and sort of, you know, drowning in the sorrow of the situation as well, Rehat, as you point out, but also working very hard. something about the hesitancy that I wanted to point out. Onesimus, you remind me, Tian and I and a colleague in the US recently published a piece kind of addressing, this question of vaccine hesitancy. Yes, there is some vaccine hesitancy, but some of it is also just structural barriers and issues that are stopping people from being able to access the vaccine. And there is this message that keeps coming, that Africans and Black people in general are, vaccine hesitant and are anti-science. So we're also trying to push back a little bit on that. It's not that people just don't want the vaccines, it's that in some cases they're really struggling to access them, and the system itself has been set up to be discriminatory. So is it vaccine hesitance, or is it, racism partially as well? So just something to keep in mind. So Sophia, welcome, bienvenue. We have really put this on you at the last minute. As I said, we had our colleague Levi Singh was supposed to be our regional representative today to brief us on the work that they are doing with youth, and he had to go into an emergency meeting. So our friend from Tunisia has agreed to jump in. So thank you very much for being such a good friend to us, Sophia, and we appreciate it. So the floor is yours.
Thank you. I'll be talking, share with you a brief introduction about Jamaiti and the work we do in Tunisia. Jamaiti is a platform that works on civil society in Tunisia. Our work is based on two things. The first one is collecting and sharing information that is important for the civil society in Tunisia, and that's why into our platform we have several databases that we are putting on. Like the database of most important and most active NGOs in Tunisia, a database of active donors in Tunisia, a database of opportunities such as job offers, call for applications, and others. And we also have a database for events and projects that have been done and are doing by Tunisian civil society and donors, of course. So the platform connects all those peoples, not only online, but also on the field. We do that through several activities, like ones we call Jamaiti meetings, where we invite donors and talk about issues, problems that civil society organizations are facing, and we try to help them coordinate together to better organize themselves and coordinate their actions on the field. For the COVID, with the crisis that we had in Tunisia since 2019 and 2020, and as we saw that our, let's say, main mission is to deal with information, we couldn't actually do other thing than other than delivering information about the cause and about what's happening in terms of fighting with the COVID. So that's why we implemented a new platform we called COVID-19 Fighters, which into it we share all the information about events, actions, any type of events or activities that happen in Tunisia about the civil society for the COVID-19. I can share with you two links for the Jamaiti platform, also for the platform of COVID. And there you can find, as I said, articles, news, money collecting campaigns that had been done with civil society in Tunisia. I mean, the situation is not that good. Many other of you are saying. People are hesitating, yes, about the vaccination. We don't have, I mean, like yesterday, I think they are thinking about another shutdown for the country. We have 4 regions in the country that are mostly affected by the virus, and we are like going again into a crisis. Yeah, if any one of you have a question or anything, I'm here.
And can you tell us a little bit about the vaccine rollout so far in Tunisia, Sophia? I mean, do people who you know, is it just healthcare workers at the moment, or is there a broader rollout? Just give us a sense for those of us who are not reading news about Tunisia, what the situation is.
Yeah, For now, more than 40% of those who are over 16 years old are vaccinated. So people are getting the vaccine, let's say steady. But under 16, I mean, they are not, most of them, they are not accepting the fact that they have to get the vaccine for many reasons. I mean, it depends. But now I think really this month and the month ago, I mean, the corona or the virus is spreading very, very well, very, very, let's say, much, and it's having a lot of problems. So people are getting the vaccine. It's not a steady thing, but we hope that in the next month, till July, we have more than 40 that are getting the vaccine.
Okay, great. Thank you. I see Rayhad's hand up, and does anybody else? I know that Rayhad has had a few interventions already. Does anybody else have a question for our friend from Tunisia about the work that's going on there?
My one's quick. Is anything in English that we can read?
Sofian, your site is in French and in Arabic, yes? Is that correct?
Yes, for now it's in French and Arabic, yes. It's the two most languages that are used in Tunisia.
Okay, okay. So
sorry,
Rayhad,
can I just say that I have
if there is
tried...
anything specific that you want to be to read or get, we can try to write it in English.
Thanks.
Yes. Tian, I think I heard your voice. Was that Tian?
No, I was just going to say, if it's helpful to Riyadh, it also depends on your patience. I know my patience got quite thin, but I use that Google Translate button on Sofian's website and managed to mosey my way around. So maybe that can help in the interim.
Yeah, that could be a solution, yes.
Violet, I see your hand is up.
Yes, I wanted to ask, have there been any interventions in Tunisia regarding community engagement? And how does that look like? Yes, that was my question.
Did you hear that, Sophia? Community engagement
Very
interventions.
well. Yeah, well, community engagement. Yes, there are some few NGOs that are working in Tunisia about sensibilizing people and talk to them to get the vaccine in Tunisia, but it's not too much. The media is not working very well. I mean, there's few things that are publishing into the TV, but the most useless or the most using tool in Tunisia is Facebook. So people are sharing videos or things on Facebook, but there are few things that are being done with the media. For now, there is no coalitions that has been mentioned in Tunisia by civil society, but there are, as I said, few NGOs specifically are working on this matter.
Okay, great. Thank you. Thank you. And just in terms of, and I see that Rayhad has shared something there. Thank you. The Train the Trainer manual from the COVID-19 People's Coalition. Thank you. And, you know, in terms of things like translations, you know, somebody had, I think it was, maybe it was Njoki who mentioned, you know, how do we advocate, you know, towards our colleagues, comrades, friends in countries like Canada, and Germany. You know, as I said, we have had this request to take the civil society letter that we had, that you all, some of you had signed, the letter from civil society to certain European leaders, and put it in an English newspaper, an edited version. We have also had a suggestion that maybe it could be translated and put in a newspaper in Germany as well. So, you know, the People's Vaccine Alliance is not an organization, it is a network of organizations, but there is a little bit of funding available for those types of things. So if there's a day of action, you know, and in Kenya or, you know, in Tunisia, something is happening and you do need assistance with translation or interpretation, whether it is into German or in your case, Sophia, you know, a French and Arabic group wants to bring in comrades from, you know, the sub-Saharan Africa and have translation into English. There might be funding for those kind of small initiatives. So I just wanted to let you all know about that. So Sophia, thank you so much for sharing, and we will keep in touch with you, of course. So now, unless there are any last questions about this, I'd like to move on to the next part of the agenda, which was really looking forward. So we really wanted to talk about upcoming events. I know that Buba Khan out of Action AID in Gambia has an upcoming event that he has been working on. And Violet, it would be great if you could also brief us on the event that you're working on and any other groups that have upcoming events that we can amplify or participate in, please. So Buba, why don't I start with you?
Yeah, thank you. Thank you so much, Maaza. It's been great. Actually, from this end, what we're planning to do is to organize a side event or a parallel session around the regional dialogue that is looking at the SADC Development Community 10-year plan. That plan has been produced. The consultations are ongoing for inputs. The civil society across the region is being convened by Action AID and other partners to discuss numerous themes. Having looked at the agenda, I felt that what is missing is, in this difficult time, we needed to talk about vaccines access, equity, and how things are rolling out in Southern Africa. And I happened to go ahead to convene this. So I, quickly wrote onto their template for to get the access granted. So now all is set for 29 and 30th. That will be the days for the regional convening. So they dubbed it Regional Dialogue on SADC Development Committee's 10-year plan. So we wanted to see what the states are doing around that. What is the vaccine access issues? What are the communities, move towards getting them vaccinated? What are some of the problems that they are facing with? And in addition, is just to ensure that this goes into the leadership's mind so that they can reflect on the need to include this in the strategic plan, because heavily, I think the Southern African region is the most affected in terms of the pandemic. So we needed to be strategic about this. Some are currently facing the third wave, and that preparedness is needed, and people need to be aware of what is happening. So that's why that team that would join that regional convening, we had intended to be able to share info about what Africa, the PVA Africa, and all of us are doing. So if we have something that we can say, the presentation that Maaza did in the beginning is excellent, we can elaborate on that. And we can also talk about what are some of the key concerns that we are facing, what are some of the challenges we are facing, the hesitancy issues, and all of that. So if we can do that, I think that would be great. That's why I thought we can discuss about that and see who will be available to be able to join the panel of 4 or 5 at most, because it's a 1-hour breakaway session that will be needed. So that's where I and Job and Maaza have been in discussions with. So we thought this could be a forum where we could share this idea and see who will buy in. I'm sure there are colleagues from Southern Africa who would be, very much interested to join us to be able to make it great. Thank you.
Thank you, Buba. And that's the 29th and the 30th. Buba, is this open? Is it something that people can register for to attend?
Yeah, it's open. I can share the link of the registration for people to register and join.
Okay, please do. If you can share it in the chat, that would be great. Do any comrades here have questions for Buba about this upcoming meeting? Or would you probably want to see the description before you ask questions, but if you do, please feel free. Not at the moment. Okay. Something that I did forget, and I'm sorry about this, Tanvir, I should have called on you earlier. I know that you had a meeting last week, and that should have been in the earlier section, but could you update the group on the meeting that you held? And I see that you've already shared a document. Tanvir's, I just say Tanvir's name and she's already sharing documents in the chat. So yes, please go ahead, Tanvir, before we go to Violet.
Maaza. Thank you so much, Maaza. I don't think it's a problem because I think we have upcoming events coming as well, so it should be fine. But as Maaza mentioned, 2 days ago, we had an event which was just a draft, which was just an advocacy kind of strategy planning where we invited a lot of different NGO members from each country in SADC, as many as we could, just to have a better understanding of, where their country stands right now and the kind of advocacy that they think it would be best for us to adopt. You'll see that I have sent this draft strategy plan in the chat box. We are not 100% sticking to that plan because that was drafted before the event, but with whatever output we've kind of had from the event, we're going to change this. But the reason I shared this is I'm assuming it might be of interest to a lot of you. In the first meeting that we had, I remember Levi was here, Maaza, and Levi offered to help with the youth advocacy section, for example. So I would really appreciate if all of you could maybe go through the strategy planning, tell me if there's anything that we're doing that you might be interested in participating in. And I think this also ties into, Maaza, when you ask about upcoming dates, you'll see there are a few dates in there with the African Commission, a few summits happening. There are some dates we're not too sure of. So it's still in bracket, but that should also be helpful. And I think for everyone else as well, especially from an African perspective, there are different stakeholders, different institutions that we might want to target. So there are a few key dates there to look out for. But yeah, essentially, otherwise, the event yesterday was just getting together and having conversations about who's willing to help with what. One thing I will tell you about one upcoming event is we have one on the 15th of July, and it's a litigation workshop. So it is still a closed event, but we are looking for lawyers from the Comoros, Seychelles, and Madagascar. I will write that Madagascar. I will write that here in the chat box. And the reason we're saying lawyers is because we are kind of scouting for possible litigation around vaccine access. So we're trying to, so that's why we don't want anyone from the government. We would just like to know whether there are anyone who have ideas about, where litigation can be applicable so that it's very not only symbolic, but also meaningful for the African region. But yeah, essentially, I will also put my details in the chat box, Maaza, so anyone can email me if they're interested, but that's it on my side. Thank you.
Perfect. Thank you, Tanvir. So I will go through the document and pick out any key dates that we can add in the dates looking forward for the People's Vaccine Alliance. Thank you for sharing your email. Those of you who know lawyers in those countries, please let Tanvir know. But Tanvir is also asking us to have a look at this draft advocacy strategy and see if there are areas that we can be involved in. Tanvir, I believe you and Levi are in touch now via email. I hope, and if not, I can reconnect you. But yes, Levi had expressed interest in the youth advocacy component. So thank you for that, Tanvir. And then I know we're almost out of time, but Violet, I wanted to give you a chance to speak about the meeting that you are planning tomorrow, just to let us know if it's open.
Yes, just before I go in, I can't seem to see the strategy Tanvir is talking about. Could she share it on the chat?
It's a PDF document. Tanvir, could you link it?
Yes, I will send it again.
Okay.
No worries.
Okay.
Okay, thank you. Okay, so yes, the event tomorrow is a People's Vaccine Stakeholders Roundtable meeting, and we just thought that as Kenyan, we were doing different organizations in the health movement were doing different things together, and we thought, how best could we then come together as different institutions and different organizations, all in the health sector, and have a common voice. So it's more of a strong advocacy voice from different institutions that will not only reach the national level, but also the global level in terms of people's vaccines. So yes, it's an open event. In the agenda, we are looking at things to do with the lack of transparency when it comes to even procurement of the vaccines by the Kenyan government. We'll also be tackling vaccine hoarding. We'll also be looking at the issue of how, which has been a real issue in Kenya, where some of the people being vaccinated do not follow in the priority group. So we also want to question that. And then another issue, recently in Kenya, our budget was read, and we are just about to have our appropriations bill tabled in Parliament. And we are still trying to see how best can we speak to government, speak to Treasury and the concerned bodies to reallocate more money for the purchase of vaccines. So basically, that's what the meeting is about. And yeah, it's open. I'll share the details of the meeting on the chat box.
Thank you so much, Violet. And you're hoping to focus just on Kenyan organizations, it sounds like, then, for that, because it's a national meeting. Okay.
Yes.
So anybody in Kenya, working in Kenya, who would like to attend Violet's meeting, she will put the information in the chat. Thank you, Njoki. I see this Festival to Fight Inequality, so I will definitely be contacting you about that. Does anybody else have any upcoming meetings that they would like to share with us? Thank you, Rehad, for your strategy. We'll be sharing all of these attachments as well in the notes that we send out from this meeting. Does anybody else have upcoming meetings that they would like to inform the group about already? Or any upcoming key dates that we can include?
I was thinking, we need a few months to do anything to get any of the big ships to turn, the big organizations. Certainly 5-6 weeks sort of prep, lead up time, mobilizing time. What about August 9th, International Women's Day?
That's a good idea. And it's actually I think it's South African Women's Day, right? And International Women's Day is in March, but I did have that on my radar, sort of a day, especially Susan, given the feminist perspectives on COVID-19 that you all had discussed yesterday. I think there's a nice link there. So I'll put Women's Day, South African Women's Day on the list.
Hopefully by then we'll be over our third wave. Until then, we can't really do anything. It's deeply frustrating. But just one other thing, I mean, I don't know how accurate people's figures are from the respective African countries, but we're moving to a situation where we say when the testing is over 10% in positivity, then we need to start moving towards battening down the hatches. But under 10%, we meet physically. We don't. The digital divide is a major stumbling block to mobilization of our communities.
Yeah. Which, yes, it's very difficult. Okay. Thank you. Thank you, Rehad. And, for those of you who, I'm going to put my email in the chat here as well. But please do, if you'd like to be included in the WhatsApp group, send me your number. Tian, since you're on, could you also send the link for people, the links on our website for them to sign up either for the AVDA updates, for the People's Vaccine Alliance membership. There are 3 options there for people to sign on the website. But please do, if you'd like to be included in the WhatsApp group, please send me your phone number. There is also an option to do it on the website, and I will add you on the WhatsApp group. Oh, I've just sent this directly to Tanvir. Sorry, I'll send my email address to the entire group. Any last comments? We just have 2 minutes remaining. Bye, Rehad. Thank you for joining us. Rehad is signing off. Any last comments from anybody before we wrap up? No. Okay. I think we are 1 minute before. So I just wanted to thank you all. I know that we are very tired of webinars and meetings, but I really appreciate you all making the time. Viv has sent the calendar invites for the next 3 months. but we will send out reminders before the meetings. But it is the last Thursday of every month. We will keep holding these meetings, and we hope to have Levi present at the next meeting, but we are always open to having any of you also jump in to introduce your organizations. We really appreciate you. We know it's a difficult time for everyone on the continent with the third wave. So thank you very much for making the time. Good luck with your upcoming meetings, and please, yeah, stay safe and keep in touch.
Thanks, Maaza.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye, everyone.
Bye-bye.